Well, welcome back to the shop. This is part 2 of fixing the oil puke issue out of the air breather on this 2015 Low Boy Ultra Classic Limited Low. A lot of words just to say it's that slower. But we have the gaskets in for the base top of the head here. Then now we can go ahead and just start assembling back together. So let's get right to it and see if it was those little pesky O-rings that was causing this puking issue. Welcome back to Butler Customs Motorcycle Shop. Now, if you're just stumbling upon this video, there is a part 1, and I'll put a link in the description down below. And I'll also put the 2 videos in a playlist. Hopefully this will be the last video. Right now, we just got to assemble everything back together, fire it up, see if that fixed it, and we're good to go. So let me bring you over here, show you the gasket that I was waiting on that had the kit, and why I went a little extra step to get that. Now, if you watched part 1, then you'll understand why I went the extra step to get this off. I had thought that maybe it was upside down. I ran a camera scope up underneath and I did see that it was uninstalled correctly. However, it was weeping and leaking. And guess where it was leaking from? Exactly where that O-ring sits, and it was coming out and weeping out down here. So the more I thought about it while I was waiting on the new ones to come in, the more I'm pretty certain that was our culprit. That little O-ring, remember that breather was blocked and had nowhere to go. So I'm suspecting that's going to be the issue. If not, then it's probably going to be something inside the cam cavity to resolve that issue. And no, it is not overfilled with oil. That is the #1 cause, but as you saw on even checking it on cold, it was right at halfway filled, setting upright. So that's not going to be an issue. But here is the stock gasket or the base of the rocker assembly, the James gaskets. But as you can tell by the upgrades, these are really nice gaskets. They've got this raised little seal all around the places that you need them. I didn't think I would be going down this far, so I didn't opt for that. But you can get a rocker top kit that actually comes with these and all the things you need for the rocker top. But before I started the project, I didn't think I would be going down this far, so I opted with the other gasket set because it was a little bit more affordable for the customer. But we did wind up having to get these. If hindsight's 20, 40, 50, 60.5, I would have, got the kit that came with these, but I didn't. We want to look at the orientation of this and get this lined up, because if you're not careful, these will go on backwards, and then your cavity for the head breathing will be backwards. So you want to make sure you get them backwards, and I'll show you that when we get over there on the bike. But before all that, we've got to clean up the surface, and especially we've got to blow out the holes, the threaded holes that everything's going to bolt to. And I'll show you why that's so important. So you want to clean out all of your holes, get all the goop out of them, but you want to make sure there's no oil in them. If there's oil in them and you go to torque that bolt down, the oil does not compress, has nowhere to go. It will blow out your head. And the culprit is this one right here, because it does not go all the way down through. And you go to thread that bolt in and torque it down, it'll blow out a chunk of your head, and that is bad. You'll get an oil leak from there. And also right here, this one goes down pretty far, and it's really thin, and you could blow out the bottom of that as well. So you want to take the time, just not clean up the surface, but get an air nozzle down in there, blow out all of these holes. I even blow out the oil passages as well. Boy, there was a lot of oil in them holes. A lot of people don't think to do that, but I tell you what, to me, it's more important if you blow these holes out especially this one, where the breather assembly bolts go, that's more important to me than if you were to leave all the gasket material on. I'm serious. If you don't scrape the gasket material off, worst case scenario, you'll get a leak, which is pretty rare with these James gaskets. But if you don't blow the threaded holes out, especially your breather bolt holes that are machined down really, really thin, you will blow those out. I was going to video it to show you the oil coming out, but I didn't want it spraying all over the camera. Then everything would have been just blurry. But now we're ready to go back with our gasket. So remember, here's our channel cutout right here, and you can see this on this gasket. So this is the way it goes on, so that the oil or the air primarily goes through this channel. It can go on this way, but that is wrong. This is what I thought was going on, and you can see the gap here. Maybe you can, I don't know. But there is a big gap here. I mean, it's pretty large, this gap here that runs down so that the gasket doesn't cover it. And what you'll have, once it's smashed down, is a passage of the thickness of this gasket right here. That's why I put my mouth over here in the first video and put my finger over the hole and blew before we took that cover off, and I had good pressure. If this would have been on wrong and I blew, you'd have heard it leaking out. Also, if this was on backwards, you would have got an oil leak out of here running down. So the gasket was on correct. We'll set this one on correct, and then we'll go ahead and get the bottom of the cover cleaned up and go ahead and get it set up on here and start running our bolts in that hold that in. All my threads are cleaned out real nice and well. I'll clean up the threads on the bolts, clean up the bottom of the plate, and then we'll slide it on. Now the bottom of our cover, it is chromed as well, so it cleans up pretty easy. Now you'll still see lines in there, but as long as you don't feel anything, then you're good. You know, there's plastic scrapers like this that do a pretty good job. There's these that I use that are for like decals that I'll put in there on there just to get any kind of trash off, as far as paper towel stuff, things like that. This does really good just getting garbage off after you've cleaned. Then of course you have your metal blade that does good as well. This is chrome, so you want to be careful not to gouge into anything on the bottom of the plate. But now we're ready and it's good to go back on. Now before you go back on with this, it's a good time to go ahead and clean out these thread hoses as well. Especially this one. This one does not go all the way through. So if there's any oil in this where you just took it off and set it down, you'll want to clean that out. There'll be some maybe Loctite or some goop around the top of the threads. Clean those out as well. So this one is good and ready to just slide in here and just set on there while we get everything kind of lined up. Our gasket, and you can kind of run your fingers underneath and get your gasket lined up. Now it'll slide down, that's fine. And we'll go ahead and get our cleaned up bolts and we'll start running those in our holes. All right, my apologies, I forgot to turn my microphone on, so I'm going to have to voice over on this, so the quality of sound is not going to be as good. But I go ahead and like to throw that bolt in right there and start with it first, because I can actually raise the cover up, slide the bolt in, make sure the bolt's lined up with the gasket as I hold it up, and then find the actual hole for it as well. And that really helps me to get at least that one lined up. And then I'll go around and start lining the other ones up, and I will run them in finger tight. If your threads are clean and the bolts are clean, they should thread right on down with no trouble. You got 4 short bolts that go kind of in the bottom of the plate, and then you've got 2 longer bolts that go toward the back on the left side that kind of go down in that little groove on both sides. So it took me a Sharpie and I wrote on the plate the sequence order of tightening and the torque specs as well. So this one right here is your number 1. Number 2 is back in the corner on the rear. Number 3 is in the front corner. And number 4 is there, 5 and 6. Then I also wrote the torque specs. It's 120 to 168 inch-pounds, not foot, but inch. And so I'm going to shoot somewhere right in the middle and go with 140 inch-pounds. All right, those all got torqued down real well, no trouble with those. Now I'll take some brake clean and just spray it on a rag and just wipe off my Sharpie markings. A lot of people freak out when I'm Sharpieing on a motor, but it wipes right off, no trouble. And that keeps me from having to run back and forth to the manual on the bench behind me and come in torque. So kind of helps me out. So we're going to go ahead and get the O-rings out as we're getting ready to put the push rods in. So the top of the head has some O-rings, and then at the top down at the tappet cover has some O-rings as well. So you'll take those 4 O-rings out. All right, we'll go ahead and get the push rods out of the push rod tubes and inspect the bottom of your push rods. These are in really good shape, but run your finger over it. Make sure you don't feel any burrs. Of course, blow through it. Make sure there's no obstructions in it. But inspect the push rods while you got them out. Now, we did not readjust these push rods, so we can just set them right back in. But on the tubes, we're going to take the tubes apart and then put new O-rings in there. Now on Harleys, you're going to find that an exhaust and an intake push rod are different lengths. So the exhaust is always longer than the intake because the exhaust lifter is further away from the actual head, and so there's a little bit more length that has to be taken up. Now James Gaskets will pack all of their push rod tube O-rings in a separate package. They'll all be the same color, but they're easy to differentiate between the 2 or 3. So I like that they put them in a different pack so you don't get them mixed up, because some of them are very similar, like this one that goes up in the head. It's very similar to the O-ring that failed that goes underneath our breather. So if they didn't package them separately, you might get the wrong one in. So I'm glad that they do that. So I like to go ahead and lay all my O-rings out, put them all in order. That way it's easy to know what goes where. And I'll go ahead and set the whole pack out and do the 2 push rods for the rear. And then when I get the front push rods off, I've already got them set out and ready to go. So here I'll just go ahead and clean up the tubes themselves, clean up that spring, clean up the washer. This one had 2 washers in between it, so I'll clean all that up, get the rust and corrosion off that, so that hopefully there's a little bit more tension and a little bit more springiness in that. After this clip here, then my audio, I realize I didn't have it on and it comes back. So I'd just like to go ahead and oil up all my new O-rings going in. There should be 3 going in. And I apologize, I've been yapping and talking and I just realized I didn't even turn my mic on. So I'm going to have to go back and voice over this, so my apologies. This top O-ring will slide right on that. That's what goes up into the head. Then you'll have this, then your spring, then your washer, which this had 2 washers, so I'm just going to put them back. Then your smaller O-ring, thinner one, goes right up on that. And then this slides up with the beveled side up to kind of catch that O-ring. And then you've got this big but kind of skinny one that goes like that. Now our exhaust is ready to go back in. Take your bottom O-ring out, go ahead and set it in there. Take your top O-ring and push it up in there with your finger. Make sure it's seated in that hole really good. Then run your finger up in the middle. Make sure that it's not oblonged out up inside there. And then that's good. Now you can set this on here. Then you can run this down in here, just like that. And just leave it there for now, because we got to do the other side, the intake as well. So I'm going to go do the same thing I just did, cleaning this, putting it together, oiling up the new O-rings, putting them in, sliding the push rod in. I'm cleaning up these bolts here for the rocker arm assembly. And you might just look at them and say, oh yeah, they look good and clean. But they're not. Now, if you don't have a thread chaser or thread cleaner upper doodabber 5000, you got some wire strippers, you can use these. They work great. I've been using these for years and never had an issue. Now you got to be careful. You just stick these in the thread here. I like to put them on the biggest one. It don't matter if it's straight or not, but you got to know how much to kind of hold. Then you'll take your gun and you'll just go slow. You see all that coming off there? That's thread lock that was on that thread that you could not see. So just run it back and forth. It'll clean that up just like that. And now look at all the stuff that was on that thread, and when you go to tighten it, that's going to give you problems as far as torque. Now I'll spray this off with some brake cleaner, and now this thread is good on this bolt. So you don't have to have a lot of fancy tools, and these work great. So now we're ready to go on with our support plate for the rocker arms, the rocker arm assembly as I call it. Now you'll want to clean out while you got it off. Go ahead and clean your gasket material out from where your new breather gasket's going to sit in the breather assembly. Also, clean out these holes in here as well. You'll be surprised how many bolts you slide through and trash gets out. And it'll get caught up under here, get down in your threads, could cause all kinds of issues. Also a good time, just to inspect for everything. Make sure everything's in there nice and good. Now if you're taking stuff out and you accidentally push on this, your bolt back here is not going to go in there because there's a cutout in this arm that lets that bolt center on this shaft. So if you're trying to get the bolt in and it won't go, you might have to move this shaft up and down a little bit. Also, make sure you clean out the back side here. Here, 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 and this right here. This is where this O-ring is going to set. And also, these two holes here, blow them out with compressed air. Not just with your mouth. Blow everything out after you're done cleaning it with compressed air. Because you'll have trash get down up under here, gasket material, you won't see it. So just blow it all out with compressed air. Now it's good to go back on. Now some folks say, well, while you're here, why don't you drill these holes out? Well, some people do, but that's for really built motors, going bigger cams and bigger oil pump, more oil flow. For stock, it's unnecessary. You really don't have to mess with that. And you can get into a lot of trouble if you drill these out not to the proper size. So personally, I would not mess with that unless you're building a really cool engine. Now we're just ready to go right back on. Remember, our O-ring is in there. That's the only gasket that goes down under there. Now we'll just slide this up, and I want to pay attention to my rocker arms. Make sure they're setting on the valve tops, on the springs. Then I'll just lower this down and make sure that my push rods are up in here in their holes. That's it. Just let it kind of hang out there. Get your bolt. Now the manual doesn't say anything about using Loctite on these rocker arm bolts, so I'm not going to. Sometimes Loctite is there or not used so that you get a proper kind of torque. So I'm going to get these started. These back here, I might have to take the rocker arm off. Yeah, okay, I messed up. I'm leaving this in the video too, so you know. Alright, so let's take these out again. We're going to have to slide our bolts, I think that one went back there, in before we put this in. So our rear bolts have to be in as we're kind of finagling. Watch your O-ring there. Can kind of pull this up. Now we can get it back here. I'll hold my arms up. And now we should be able to slide everything in. Now I'm not going to go all the way down yet. There's a reason for that. But I'm going to go in the back and get the back two started and down with a ratcheting wrench. Okay, I want to make sure my arms are right on top of the valve, and they are. And now again, I'm not running these down till they make contact. I'm just getting them down pretty close, just till they're about to touch. I want to pull my push rod tubes up. I want to look down in there. I want to make sure my push rod end is down in the lifter. It is. On both, it is. Then I want to look up in here, make sure it's up in the socket up here and over here as well. They are. What I want to do now is turn these four in a quarter at a time. When these get tight and I can't spin these anymore, I'm going to stop. Now remember, we've not moved the back wheel, so it should be, both lifters should be on the base of the cam. So there should be no lift. However, when you tighten this down, you will get some lift until these lifters bleed down. So there will be tension on it. And if you just go and torque these down right now, it could put too much tension while that lifter is trying to bleed down, and you could bend a push rod. Remember, push rods are hollow. Yes, they are sturdy, but if you don't let these bleed off, you could really damage something. Not just bend a push rod, you could hurt a valve, a bushing, anything like that. So I want to turn these a quarter at a time, probably with my ratchet and wrench because I can get in all four really good. I'm going to do that till these get tight. So there is a torque sequence when you're torquing these down. So the one in the far back is a 1, then this one right here is a 2, then this one right here is a 3, and then that one back there is a 4. All right, now already I cannot move this exhaust push rod, I cannot turn it, and I cannot turn the intake push rod. So at this time, they're under load, and we got to let those lifters bleed down to where things get loose. Now I'm still a good ways off from this rocker arm assembly being down on this plate. So this is important. You want to take your time. So go make you some coffee, go search the interwebs, catch up on social media, whatever you do, pet your dog, I don't know. But just leave it alone. Then come back, make sure both are loose, then go ahead and start getting back on it. 1/4 turn each at a time. Then you have to wait, stop again, and wait. Something that I forgot to film before I put those push rods in back when I was rebuilding these tubes. I did put some oil down on top of the lifters. That way the push rods aren't sitting on there dry. Some say it matters, some say it don't, because when you fire it up, it's shooting oil anyway. But I did put some oil down on the top. Just wanted you to know before you put the push rods in, you know, you might want to do that. At this point right here, you could even squirt some down in there and just kind of work them around before you start tightening on things. These are still tight. It's been about 5 minutes, so I'm going to wait a little bit longer. So everything's bleeded down, 1/4 turn at a time. Wait for it to bleed down, 1/4 turn at a time. Wait for it to bleed down, 1/4 turn at a time. Played that dance. Rocker arm assembly is down. And now I can turn my exhaust nice and smooth and my intake nice and smooth. Now I'm ready to do my final torque. The torque specs on these are 18 foot-pounds to 22 foot-pounds. So if you know me by now, I always go right in the middle. So we're going to do 20 foot-pounds, and I want to start with number 1, which is back here on the back, then number 2 here, number 3 here, and number 4 back there on the back as well. Now, as I'm torquing down, if I go further than a 1/4 turn, I will stop. I don't want to go past a 1/4 turn. So I've got it set to 20 foot-pounds. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I did start to hear a beep. My tool says 16.2. So I'm going to stop there. Okay, got a beep out of that, 16.4. So even though my rock arm assembly is setting on the plate, it's a little tight. I can still spin it a little. The intake I cannot. So I'm going to wait now. Let them bleed down. It should be the last bleed I have to do. The other 1/4 turns should get it locked down. It's already beeping back here. They're at 16. The ones right here, let's see what they're at. It's only at 9.4. So these are going to have to be torqued down a little bit more than what's back there, which makes sense because as these go down, the arms are pushed up here. All right, I am back. Both push rods are spinny again. Now I can go back here and see how close we can get. There's 20.1 foot-pounds. So this should be our final go at it. But remember, these were kind of loose up here. All right, there's a 1/4 turn. 20.6. And then our last, number 4, 20.1. Now these are going to be tight, but that's the final torque. They're all torqued down. Now we will not move this wheel over until we wait and let it bleed down for the final time. When I can turn this and this, both push rods, freely but no up and down lash, then we are good. We can go ahead, put the top cover on and its gasket. No, gosh, we've got to put the breather in. But that should be the last torquing that we do on these. They are down, they are torqued. We just got to wait for them to bleed. If you wait and they don't bleed, sometimes you might have to wait. Gosh, I've let them set sometimes overnight just to let them bleed down on that final torque. You just never know. And that's why motor work takes some time, because things just have to be done in order. Now, while the lifters are bleeding down, we can start with our breather assembly, start getting it ready to go on, because I want that rocker arm assembly to be down and torqued down before we put these on. That's just how I like to do it. Maybe it doesn't matter, I don't know. So what we're going to need is our new breather strainer, catcher, filler thing here, our little umbrella. So let's disassemble this. Take that off. We'll get this old umbrella out. We will clean everything off here really, really good. Now this is what goes on the bottom. So you want to check this for flatness. Now it is thin, so as you torque these bolts down, it will flatten out. But if it's warped big time, you might want to think about replacing it. That one is fine. Now we've got this gasket here that's kind of in the middle, in between, that we'll need to take off as well. Got the bottom of these gaskets cleaned up best I can. So that one would set like that. And then here, this one's going to be stuck on there tough. So you got to scrape and scrape and scrape. But it is off. And then that sets on there like that. So there's a gasket that goes on the bottom of this, on the assembly. Then you've got a gasket that goes between these two and then your two bolts. Now, James Gaskets provides two different style gaskets. This style here is for those thicker breather assemblies. Then this style here is for the one that's on this bike. You'll see it's perforated right here, right? So it can bend like that. And then when you open this up, you're going to have this that goes like that on the circle, and then this that goes underneath like that. Now we can take our new umbrella, stick in there, and I want to pull this up to where it's not going to come out. There's little teeth kind of there, fingers that catch this little rubber nozzle. Then I want to take my new breather and stick down in there my new oil filter. Then I can take this and slide over the top, and that is done. Now this is ready to go on the bike. Everything's nice and flat. I check that. We'll clean our threads up, and I'll go and set this on just for now. Of course, I want to wait till those push rod bolts bleed down before I do any of that. Okay, we got our threads on the bolts cleaned up, sprayed off. Our push rods, there's our exhaust. Spins really, really well. There's no up and down. Our intake spins great. No up and down. These are good. Now that is done. So I can go ahead and take these off now, get them out of the way. Little rubber band and paper clip works great. Now I can go ahead, no thread lock it says in the manual. I can go ahead, get these through everything, and then the hole I'll pull up, make sure I'm in the hole. Now I got to do the same for this back here. Some of these takes a little bit of wiggling back and forth. But with the way that James Gaskets makes those gaskets for the breather, where they fold over, they kind of stay together, and I like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and just kind of ratchet these down. I did check for flatness, like the manual says. There was no warpage in those at all, so that's good. Now the torque specs on these are very small. They're 3/8 bolts, 120 inch-pounds to 156 inch-pounds. So I'm going to go with 130 inch-pounds. Okay, I'll get this one on there. There we go. Okay, 130. And I'll go back and do the other one. There we go, 130. Now, everything up here is done, torqued down, should be operating correctly. Now we can take our top rocker cover gasket and get ready to assemble it. Now you'll see a kind of a groove here and a little tab here. This is a flat side. You see this groove here? So I'm going to line this groove up with this flat side on this side. Now here you've just got a flat side and a little kind of ridge here that matches this. And then your two kind of oval things in the back. So that'll go on just like that. Let that hang out there for a second. Okay, might help if I push record, if you're gonna be here with me. Anyway, clean the bottom of this up, set it on there, put the gasket on there. Went ahead and I like to start with this bolt because I can kind of hold the cover up, make sure the bolt's sticking out and the gasket goes up in the bolt, then get the hole lined up and set it on. Then I went on this far corner, did the same thing. So now I know everything is on there. If you've cleaned your threads up, it should just go right in finger tight, just like that. Now I'm not going to get this all the way down until I get everything else in. This does call for blue thread lock on all these rocker cover bolts. If you put a bolt in and it doesn't go all the way through the gasket, don't push it down. That might mean your gasket just is not lined up right, and you'll push that gasket, and the way those gaskets are made, you could bend them and not get a good seal. So be very careful when putting your bolts in. Just don't throw them in and yank them through there, push them through there. But this is going really well. And see how clean those threads are? Look at that, all the way down with my fingers. I like it. That's how you know you got good clean threads. You can take that bolt, go all the way down with your fingers till it bottoms out. We'll put these other two in the back over here. I do them last because they're hard to get to back here. I want to make sure my gasket's lined up before I start to try to fiddle with putting these hard ones in back here and the gasket not being lined up. If I get all the other 4 bolts in, then I know that my gasket's lined up. Now I've got all these bolts in. I've got them run down till they're all touching best I can. Now I'm going to inspect around here just to double check my work. Make sure everything's good there. The torque on these are 15 to 18 foot-pounds. They're torqued down really, really tight. So I'm going to split the difference and go 16.5 foot-pounds. I'm going to use a dog bone, 7/16 on these, and I'm going to start on my number 1 over there. And we don't have to do these in quarter turns or anything like that. They're just good to go ahead and torque down. So I'm working on my number 1. It's in the middle here on the left side of the bike. All right, that was 16.7. Now I will go with my number 2, which is right here, and I'll probably just go ahead and use a socket on that. Save me a little bit of time. 16.8 on that. And my number 3 is back there in that corner. That was 18.1. So that's why I kind of like to go in the middle of things, you know? That way if I get a little happy and go a little too far, then it's okay. 16.9, that was number 4. Why'd I have 2 number 4s? What the devil, what was I drinking? What is going on in my mind? Okay, this should say 5. Why does it say 4? 16.7. Now I'm gonna go around and check them all. Just make sure I'm still tight on everything. Yep. All right, that is good. That is good. Okay, now I'll clean all my reference points off here. All my cheat notes. Lift up here, I can spin that exhaust. I can spin that intake. Now I'm ready to go back with my holders for my push rod. And what I want to do is separate this right here and get this up and in that hole and the one down in the bottom hole. Push this all the way down, and then I want this holder to go up to the top of that Boy, that really needs a new spring in there. That should not be that loose. Yikes, that is way loose. All right, now I'll take this one up and do the same. Push this little keeper down. Just like that, snap that in. All right, so that should be sealed and good. So this whole side now is done. Now, since we're not really fiddling over here anymore, we can go ahead, snap that back in, put our cover back on there, and we're done. Now, I got to do the exact same thing on the front. So now that there's no tension on the push rods, I can go ahead and pull these covers up. Go ahead and pop these out. Should almost just fall out. Go ahead and pull these up so that I can see both my push rods. But as you can see up here, even without kind of seeing the push rods, now you still want to feel the push rods. But I can tell you right now, look, my exhaust is up. So I'm going to rotate the tire just like we did on the rear till both lobes are on that base circle. And I can spin these, and I'll go ahead and check for lash before we start taking things apart, because sometimes you might need to readjust adjustable push rods. We didn't have to on the rear, but we might have to on the front. Then after I take the tension, after there's no more tension on these push rods, of course, then we can just start stripping everything off, just like we did back here. I am going to go ahead and take this plate off as well, so that we can put the new James gaskets on. It might be leaking up under there also. It might not be, but since we got the parts, let's just go ahead and do it right. That way everything's matching up here. Everything's been replaced at the same time. Now, if it keeps puking, and we have to get into the cam chest, that's why I did not go ahead and take the tappet covers off and put new gaskets in, because we would have to do that if we have to get into here. We'd have to run these adjustables all the way up. We can get the push rods out without messing in with anything up here. Then we can go ahead and take the tappet covers off, get the gasket off. We can pull the lifters out. Then we can start pulling all this off. Of course, exhaust comes off with that as well. So I'm hoping that that O-ring was our issue, but we will soon see. So that's why I didn't put those gaskets on. It's the only thing out of the pack that I did not use, and I waited for that purpose. If we have to get into here and the customer wants us to, then we are going to, I want to replace those springs in here. These should be tighter than what they are. But anywho's in house. Next time you see me, hopefully this will be done and back together, and we can put our breather bolts in and go ahead and get our at least mounting bracket on and start it up, put the tank on, start it up, see what it's gonna do. Hopefully it'll be good. There'll be no more leaking and puking out. I think the problem was this one right here. And I'm kind of curious as to what that O-ring looks like under here as well. If it's thicker than what was out of here, then we can kind of say, yep, that was our issue. If I run into anything, then I will let you know and show you on the video. Well, back the next morning, got late on me after I got everything back together, and come out here in the morning, and yep, you can turn those, they're all good. Put the clips back on, put the air breather on, got everything on top done, got these buttoned down, all the O-rings, put them back on, got these tight. These have some high torque specs. I just did not like how high they went. I think it's 18 to 22 foot-pounds, so I did right at 18, and I did not like that. These, according to the manual, have no torque spec, no blue Loctite on any of this. So at this time, this is as far as I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go over and put the bike back in neutral, and then we'll get the tank on. And the thing I'm worried about the most was when I took that fuel quick connect off and how hard it was to get off. I don't know about them O-rings up in there, so we got to be super careful getting that back up in there. But at this time, I'm ready for the tank to go back on. We can hook everything up on the top of the tank, throw our maxi fuse back in, start it up, and just watch, just observe. If it starts just puking out a bunch of oil, then we got issues down in here. If not, then it was those O-rings, and maybe the umbrella valves were just kind of wore out, thinned, and so we're gonna find out. Now, last night my hands were oily. I took the GoPro off the stand and I dropped it on the shop concrete floor. It hit right on my receiver for my microphone and it shattered it. Put it all back together. Like, man, what am I going to do now? I don't have any mic. It wouldn't turn back on. Slammed it on my table, it turned back on. So I have to leave it on because I'm afraid if I turn it off, it ain't going to turn back on. But I got a new one ordered. They got actually a mic, a DJI Mic 3 now. So I ordered that today. It'll be here tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. But hopefully everything will go well on this and we can get this back to the customer. But let's go ahead and get the tank on. Now, if my mic just shuts off, I apologize. But okay, I got my bolts out back here. I got my bolts out up here. I'm ready just to slide the tank on. There's no crossover anymore, thank goodness. Thank you, Harley, thank you. All right. So I'll just set this up on here. Slowly go toward the front. Ow, get my fingers out. And just like that, we should be lined up. Very good. Now I can go in with my bolts in the front and in the rear. They're not Loctite, but they do have torque specs. I'll share with you. All right, according to the manual, the torque spec for the rears are 15 to 20 foot-pounds. Then you tighten those down, then you move up to the fronts. They're the same 15 to 20 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna go 17 foot-pounds. We'll tighten those down. All right, there's 17. 17.2. Get me a rag here. And get this other side. Very good. All right, our tank is back on. We can take this little doobdabber there and snap that in. Take our cap off up here. We can get our console back up here. Here is our connector here for our fuel. I'm gonna plug it in first, then run that down like that. Here's our vent tube here that'll run up. Always blow in your vent tube. Make sure you don't have a clog, so that way your tank can vent. Now I'm set this to the side so I can hook my wire back in, just like that. Now I'm ready to go back on. Get that over the spout. Make sure my seal gets in there good. Make sure I don't have any wires or hoses in the way. Very good. Now this little bitty screw that goes up in the front of the console, it is torqued, and it is torqued to 20 to 30 inch-pounds. And that's like 1 foot-pound. So be careful with it. There we go. Turn my key back off. Then this bolt back here for the console. It's a 3/8 head, and it is torqued from 36 to 60 inch-pounds. So I'm going to go with 45 inch-pounds. All right, now let's move over to the quick connect. That's really kind of what I'm worried about. All right, we'll go ahead and put our cap back in now. Close our lid. All of our trim is nice. Didn't come off. We can put our end caps on now for our bolt covers. Okay, now for this. When this come off, it was hard to get off. It has rust spots on it. 10-year-old O-rings up in there. So what I like to do is just take some kind of lube, PB Blast, whatever you got, and let's lube this up really good so that it's not going up dry, pushing against those rings. And I'm going to take a rag, kind of clean all that off best I can. I don't want any kind of burr or rust spot boogering up those O-rings. There's 2 O-rings up in here, and if they go bad, you can either buy a tool, an O-ring kit to try to replace them from up in here, or you just have to replace the whole line inside the tank all the way up to the fuel pump. it's a gamble with these. I know a lot of folks in the first video commented, glad I got a petcock, gravity fed. Well, that's just the nature of these. That's how they're going to be. So I'll go ahead and make sure my finger's kind of cleaned off. I'm going to lube this up again. Now some people don't, but I do. I'll take my straw. I'll try to keep it from going everywhere, but I'll just put a squirt up in there. I want those O-rings lubed. You will take this, push up, and then you'll pull down on this as that goes up and make sure it's seated. Now, a moment of truth. We've got our connectors hooked back in where they should be for the fuel pump. We've got our key off. We've got it back in neutral. I'm going to put the maxi fuse back in, so we should have power now. It's in the run position. I'm going to turn the key on, and hopefully we don't see anything spraying out. If so, we're good. Yes! Yes! Oh, very, very good. Oh, thank you, Lord. I was worried. I was so worried about those because that can be such a pain to fix, and you just never know when you take it off how it's going to do. Okay, so now we should be good to fire it up. I'm going to move you to the other side and let's watch and see together how it's going to act. What's it going to do? Well, we're ready now to start the bike up. I'm going to come over here to start it so that I can turn the radio off or mute it. Quick connect is still good. I'm so thankful for that. Okay, got it muted. Let's start it up. Yes, I think we have success. Very good. Oh, that is awesome. So evidently it was those O-rings underneath the breather assembly or the butterfly valves just getting weak. It's doing what it's supposed to do, filtering out the oil, pushing out, letting the heads breathe. Wonderful. I don't see a drop of anything anywhere. Everything looks good and tight. I'll walk around to the other side. I'll check the gaskets as well, but everything looks really, really good. All right, everything looks good and dry to me. Very, very good. Very good. All right, I'm so thankful we didn't have to go down in the cam, that we just replaced up here the breather assembly and those O-rings. Wonderful, wonderful news. All right, so at this time I can go ahead, put our air breather on, put the cover on, get the seat on, side panel, left bag, and this bike is good to go. Now I am going to ask the customer if I can keep the bike for a little bit longer, because this company, Ansel, sent me a nice digital computer beatbox program looking up code thing. And I want to give a review of it. It was such a nice thing to send. I mean, they're expensive, but you know, as bikes get newer, you're going to be working on things that have fuel injections and O2 sensors and things like that. So we're going to put this to the test, give it an honest review. Since we got this 2015 up here, it's a good time to do it, because primarily I work on older bikes. So I'm going to put this through a review and see how it does. So be looking for that video. Well, that's going to do it for the puking issue on this beautiful 2015 Ultra Classic Limited Low. Oh boy. And I'm glad that fixed it, because you just never know when you get into it what all you're going to find. But this motor is in great condition. And I know we're missing Reed out here, but he's got chores and learning and arithmetics and stuff like that to do. So maybe he'll be out here in some future videos. But thank you so much for helping me out in the shop this week. And tell your mom and them I said hi.